The galaxy stretched out like an endless sea of stars, silent and vast. Most of the time, space felt empty, with only the hum of ships and the occasional message traveling through the dark. But today, something was different. Today, a strange transmission pierced the quiet. Commander Elias Vance sat in the control room of the Loyalty, a small human ship assigned to patrol the outer rim of known space. His crew, a mix of soldiers and engineers, were mostly focused on routine operations, scanning debris fields, checking for space pirates, and reporting back to the nearest colony. It was a peaceful life, unexciting, but safe. Until now. The console beeped with a strange frequency. Vance glanced up, his sharp eyes narrowing as the signal grew louder, breaking the usual hum of their systems. His tech officer, Lieutenant Maya Hart, immediately worked to isolate it. "It's not from any known galactic network," Maya reported, her fingers flying over the controls. "This isn't from a human ship, or any known species. It's an SOS. An SOS. Vance's voice was calm, but there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "From who?" Maya adjusted the settings, trying to clean up the transmission. The voice was faint, distorted by the vast distance it had traveled, but it was unmistakable. An alien voice, desperate and pleading for help. "We are the Excellens," the voice crackled. "Our people are dying. The galaxy has abandoned us. Please, anyone, help." The message cut off abruptly. The silence that followed felt thick, almost suffocating. "Who are the Excellens?" Maya asked, her brow furrowed. "I've never heard of them." "Neither have I," Vance replied, standing up and walking over to the communication panel. He studied the data coming through. But that message didn't sound like a hoax. They sounded real, desperate. The Excellens were a mystery. No records of them existed in any human database. Vance thought for a moment, weighing the options. He had been a soldier for many years, and the galaxy was no stranger to conflict. But this was different. A species asking for help, abandoned by all others. It was the kind of thing that demanded action. "We'll investigate," Vance said after a long pause, turning to Maya. "Set a course for the signal's origin. If someone's in trouble, it's our duty to respond." As the crew of the Loyalty readied the ship, Vance couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be unlike any other. He had faced battles, warlords, and hostile species, but the galaxy was a big place. There were so many worlds and so many stories that were left untold, hidden in the vastness of space. And now it seemed like one of those stories had found its way to them. The coordinates led them to a distant, desolate part of the galaxy, far from any known human colonies or established trade routes. The star there was dim, casting only a faint glow on the surrounding planets. As the Loyalty approached the source of the signal, the crew could see a planet below, a world that seemed to be nothing more than a barren wasteland. It was nothing like the lush, thriving worlds the human colonies were used to. This planet was silent, with no signs of life visible from orbit. No cities, no ships, just a dry, cracked surface and the faintest traces of atmosphere. "Looks like we're the first ones here in a long time," Vance said, his voice steady but filled with a sense of foreboding. "Prepare for landing. Maya, get me a direct line to the signal's origin. I want to know who we're dealing with." Maya nodded and worked quickly, her fingers tapping over the controls as she tried to lock onto the source of the transmission. As the Loyalty descended, the ship passed through a thin layer of clouds, revealing more of the planet's surface. Long, dark trenches, shattered mountains, and strange, twisting growths that seemed to pulse in the dim light. "There's no sign of civilization," Maya said, her voice low. "But I'm detecting a weak energy signature. It's coming from the surface, deep in the ruins." "Let's find out who's down there," Vance ordered, and the ship's landing gear extended, touching down on the barren world. As the crew disembarked, the wind howled around them, carrying with it the scent of dust and decay. The once great civilization of the Xelans was now reduced to nothing more than a few scattered ruins, swallowed by time and the forces of nature. Vance stood at the front of the group, his boots crunching over the rocky terrain. He looked out at the horizon, where the last rays of sunlight glinted off the ruins. It was a place of quiet desperation. Someone had sent that signal for help, and he was determined to find out why. The loyalty settled gently onto the cracked surface of the planet. Dust kicked up from the barren ground, swirling around the ship like ghostly whispers. Commander Elias Vance stepped off the ship, his boots crunching on the dry earth. Behind him, his crew followed, scanning the surroundings with cautious eyes. The air was thin, barely breathable, and the sky above was a dull grayish hue. It was clear that this planet had once been a vibrant world, full of life and activity. But now it felt like a forgotten memory, like a wound in the galaxy that had never healed. Maya Hart, the ship's tech officer, pulled up a holographic map of the planet. "There's an energy signature coming from a city-like structure about 20 miles north," she reported, her voice calm but serious. "We should head there. It might be where the signal originated." Vance nodded. "Let's move out." The journey to the ruins took several hours. The crew made their way through jagged canyons and dry riverbeds, their boots kicking up dust as they moved. There was no sign of life, no animals, no plants, nothing but the remnants of a once thriving civilization. The further they traveled, the more they found signs of decay. Buildings that had once been impressive now lay in ruins, their walls cracked and crumbling, overtaken by strange, twisted vines that seemed to pulse with an unnatural glow. When they finally reached the structure, it was nothing like they had expected. What had once been a magnificent city was now little more than a collection of stone towers and broken streets. The energy signature was coming from deep within the heart of the city, from a large, ancient-looking temple at the center. As they approached, the temperature dropped, and a strange sense of dread filled the air. The crew could feel it. Something was wrong. Maya scanned the area, her tech gear beeping as it registered unfamiliar readings. "It's not just radiation," she said, frowning. "There's something else in the atmosphere, a kind of energy field. It's everywhere, like a shadow hanging over this place." Vance's instincts told him to be cautious. "Stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with here." The crew moved forward, entering the temple. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the walls were covered in strange symbols and carvings. The deep, eerie silence only added to the feeling that they were intruding on something ancient, something forgotten. At the center of the temple, they found a large stone altar. The energy signature was strongest here, and as Maya scanned the altar with her equipment, she gasped. This isn't just a power source," she said, her voice trembling. "It's a weapon of mass destruction." Vance stepped closer, eyeing the ancient markings on the stone. "What kind of weapon?" Maya's fingers hovered over the controls as she studied the readings. "It looks like some kind of bioweapon, but it's not like anything I've ever seen. This technology is older than anything the galaxy's known." Vance narrowed his eyes. "What does it do?" Maya hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Whatever it is, it's designed to spread. It affects the planet's atmosphere, the plants, and even the people. It's a curse." The word hit like a cold wave. Vance looked at the altar, his mind racing. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a plague. A weapon so powerful, it didn't just kill, it twisted the very fabric of life. The Xelans hadn't just been abandoned, they had been cursed. "We need to find out how to stop it," Vance said firmly. "If the Xelans are still alive, they've been living with this curse for generations." The crew continued to search the temple, uncovering old records hidden in the walls. As Maya decrypted some of the symbols, she uncovered more about the Xelans' past. Long ago, the Xelans had been a peaceful, technologically advanced species, known for their ability to harness the power of nature itself. But during the final stages of the Great Galactic War, Their enemies had unleashed this weapon, this curse, on them. The weapon had turned against them, twisting their bodies, their land, and their very civilization. The Xellans had fought to contain it, but the curse spread too quickly. No one had come to their aid. And over time, the galaxy had forgotten about them. "We're the first ones to even try to help them," Maya said, her voice filled with both awe and sadness. Vance looked around the temple, feeling the weight of their mission. "And we will help them. We'll find a way to stop this curse, or we'll die trying." As the crew prepared to leave the temple, Vance's thoughts lingered on the Xellans. How had they managed to survive all these years? And how could they possibly heal from such a twisted fate? It was clear that the Xellans were no longer the powerful empire they once were. They were survivors, clinging to a dying world. But Vance knew one thing for sure: humanity was here now. And if there was one thing humanity was good at, it was fighting back against impossible odds. The Xellans had been abandoned by the galaxy, but they weren't alone anymore. Not while Vance and his crew were here. The Xellan ruins stretched out before them, silent and lifeless, but Vance could sense something stirring beneath the surface. The crew had spent the last few days exploring the remnants of the ancient city, searching for anything that could help them understand how to end the curse. But so far, they had found only more questions. The Xellans, it seemed, were not just survivors. They were broken. Scattered across the planet, the remaining Xellan population had retreated into isolated colonies, afraid to trust anyone, even their own kind. The message they had sent out to the galaxy was their last cry for help, but it was clear they had long since lost faith that anyone would answer. Now, as Vance stood at the edge of one of the ruined city blocks, he knew they had to do something more than just gather information. They needed to gain the trust of the Xellan survivors, or the mission would fail before it even began. "We've been here long enough," Vance said, turning to his crew. "We need to make contact with the Xellans. We need to get them on our side if we're going to stop this curse." Maya Hart nodded. "But they're not going to trust us. We're outsiders, and from what we've seen so far, their people are scattered and terrified. They might not even know we're here yet." "We can't afford to waste any more time," Vance replied. "We need to meet with their leader, the one who sent the message, High Chancellor Varna. She's the one who can help us find a way to stop this." Vance and his team set off toward the northern plains, where they had tracked the signal to a small fortified settlement. As they approached, the air seemed to thicken, the silence almost unbearable. The Xellans, if they were here, were hiding in plain sight. They arrived at the settlement, and it was clear that the Xellans had done their best to protect themselves. The buildings were made of thick stone, and there were defensive structures scattered around the perimeter. But the place felt abandoned, almost as if the people inside were waiting for something, or someone, to arrive. "Keep your weapons holstered," Vance ordered, his voice low. "We don't want to scare them off." They stepped inside, and the first thing they noticed was the sense of age. The walls were covered with faded paintings, depicting the Xellan people in their glory days. Advanced technology, sprawling cities, and peaceful landscapes. It was a stark contrast to the desolation they saw now. In the center of the settlement, sitting at a large round table, was High Chancellor Varna. She was older than most of the Xellans Vance had seen, her skin pale and her eyes sunken from years of hardship. She looked up as they entered, her gaze cold and calculating. "Commander Vance," she said, her voice a calm whisper, "I did not expect you to come." Vance stepped forward, meeting her gaze. "You sent the message. We came because we believe we can help. We can stop the curse, but we need your trust." Varna studied him for a long moment before speaking again. "Trust is something we lost long ago. The galaxy turned its back on us, and now we are left to suffer in silence. What makes you think that humanity will be any different?" Vance felt a flicker of frustration, but he kept his voice steady. "Because humanity knows what it's like to fight for survival. We've fought wars, faced extinction, and we've always come back. We're not going to leave you to die alone." Varna's expression softened ever so slightly, but she remained cautious. And why should I believe that? You're just one small ship. What can you do that we could not do ourselves? We have something you don't, Vance replied. Hope. You may think the galaxy has abandoned you, but we haven't. We're here, and we're not going anywhere until this is fixed. Varna's eyes narrowed. And if we don't help you? What then? You'll leave us just like the others. Vance shook his head. No, we'll find another way. But if we work together, we can save your people. You don't have to do this alone. There was a long pause as Varna studied him, the silence thick with unspoken thoughts. Finally, she spoke again. You don't understand what you're asking, she said softly. The curse, it's not just a weapon. It's part of us now. It's in our bodies, our minds, our souls. Some of us, my people, we are beyond saving. We are lost, but I cannot stand by and watch more die. I will help you, Commander Vance. But know this, the cost may be greater than you think. Vance nodded. We're prepared for whatever it takes. Varna stood slowly, her frail body shaking with effort, but her eyes were determined. Then we have no time to waste. There is an ancient vault beneath the ruins of our capital city. It holds the key to reversing the curse. But it is guarded not just by traps, but by memories of our past, memories that refuse to die. Vance's heart raced. The answer was so close, yet the danger was clear. Lead us there. We'll face whatever comes. Varna nodded, her voice a whisper of hope. Then we begin. As Vance looked at the Sellan leader, something shifted in him. They weren't just fighting to save a species, they were fighting to restore what had been lost, to give hope to a people who had long since given up. The road ahead would be dangerous, but Vance knew one thing for sure. Humanity would not abandon them. The trek to the capital city of the Sellans was long and perilous. The planet's harsh environment, with its dry winds and rocky terrain, made every step feel like a battle. But as they approached the ruins of the once great city, the landscape began to change. The structures grew taller, their once proud walls now covered in moss and strange, glowing vines. The air felt thick with the weight of the past. High Chancellor Varna led the way, her frail body moving with surprising purpose. Behind her, Commander Elias Vance and his crew followed closely, alert for any signs of danger. The path to the vault was not an easy one, but they were determined to reach it. They had no choice. We're close, Varna said, her voice barely above a whisper. The vault is beneath the old palace, where the heart of our civilization once beat. But be warned, Commander, the vault is not just a building. It's a place where our history, our memories are sealed. It was designed to protect us from the horrors of our past. But now, it holds the key to our salvation. Maya Hart, the ship's tech officer, adjusted her equipment, scanning the area. Do you mean it's guarded? She asked, her voice cautious. Guarded by more than just technology, Varna replied. It is protected by the very essence of the curse. The vault holds memories. Memories of the pain, the destruction, and the betrayal we suffered. But these memories are not just in the minds of the Sellans. They live in the vault itself. Vance exchanged a look with his crew. We'll handle whatever comes. Let's just get to it. As they entered the palace ruins, the air grew colder. The once grand structure was now a shell of its former self. The walls were crumbling, and the floors were covered in a thick layer of dust. Yet even in its ruined state, the palace still carried a sense of power, of grandeur. We are close, Varna said again, her voice trembling slightly. The vault is below us. They reached a large set of stone doors at the heart of the palace. The doors were unlike anything they had seen before, carved with intricate symbols, glowing faintly in the dim light. Maya's equipment beeped as she scanned the symbols. These symbols, they're ancient. I've never seen anything like them, Maya said, her eyes wide. But they're not just decorative. They seem to be a part of the locking mechanism. "Can you get them open?" Vance asked. Maya didn't hesitate. "I'll try." She moved forward, carefully studying the symbols. Her fingers danced over her device, connecting it to the stone doors. As she worked, a low hum filled the air. The ground beneath them seemed to tremble slightly, as if the vault itself was waking up. "There's something strange about this," Maya muttered, her brow furrowed. "I can feel the energy shifting. It's not just a lock, it's a warning." "Focus, Maya," Vance urged. "We need to get inside." With a final click, the doors groaned open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down into the depths. The crew stepped forward, weapons at the ready, but the atmosphere in the vault felt different. There was no immediate danger. Instead, there was a deep, overwhelming sense of loss. As they descended, the air grew colder, and the walls seemed to pulse with a strange energy. The staircase led them to a large chamber, its walls lined with strange, glowing crystals that hummed softly. In the center of the room stood a massive stone pedestal, and atop it was a glowing orb, its light dim and flickering. "This is it," Varna said, her voice filled with reverence. "The heart of the vault. The key to everything." Vance stepped forward, eyeing the orb carefully. He felt its energy, a powerful but eerie force, pulling at him. Maya scanned the orb with her equipment, her eyes narrowing. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," she said. "The readings are off the charts. It's not just a power source. It's alive. Somehow." Varna nodded solemnly. "This orb contains the memories of the Xellans, the history of our people, the rise, the fall, and the curse. But it is also the weapon that has caused so much pain. The curse was born here, in this vault. If we can understand it, we can break it." Vance approached the pedestal, his heart pounding. "How do we use it?" Varna's eyes darkened. "We must connect with the memories. But the curse is a part of them. The memories will not be kind. They will show you the darkest moments of our history, the destruction of our cities, the betrayal of our allies, and the horrors we endured when the curse was unleashed." Vance turned to his crew. "We've come this far. We can handle the truth. We have to." Maya stepped forward, her face filled with determination. "We're ready." Varna reached out to touch the orb, and the room suddenly erupted with light. A blinding flash filled the chamber, and for a moment, everything went silent. Then, images flooded their minds, visions of the Xellans at the height of their civilization, their cities bustling with life, their people filled with hope. But then came the darkness, cities burning, people screaming, the sky blackened by the curse that ravaged their world. Vance staggered back, his mind reeling. The pain, the suffering, the loss. It was all too much. But amid the chaos, a single thought echoed in his mind. This is how we stop it. The orb's light dimmed, and the visions faded. The crew stood in stunned silence, each of them trying to process what they had just seen. "We can end this," Vance said, his voice firm. "But we need to find the cure. It's here somewhere." Varna looked at him, her eyes filled with both sorrow and hope. "It's not too late. Together, we can undo the curse and rebuild what was lost." The light from the orb faded, leaving the chamber in an eerie silence. Commander Elias Vance stood still, his heart still racing from the visions he had seen. The weight of the Xellans' history pressed heavily on his chest. The destruction of their cities, the betrayal by their allies, and the relentless spread of the curse. Everything they had endured was laid bare before him. The crew was equally stunned, each of them processing the horrors they had witnessed. Maya Hart stood to the side, her brow furrowed as she tried to make sense of the data her equipment had gathered. The air in the chamber felt thick, as if the memories of the past had become part of the very room itself. Varna, the High Chancellor of the Xellans, stood near the pedestal, her face drawn and tired. The burden of her people's suffering was clear in her eyes. She had lived through it all, watched as her people were destroyed by the curse, and now she was watching the only hope for her species fade before her very eyes. "We've seen the truth," Vance said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "We know what happened. We know how the curse spread, but we still don't know how to stop it." Varna looked up at him, her gaze piercing. "The key to ending the curse lies within the orb, but the memories we witnessed, they are not just a record of the past. They are the source of the curse itself. To break it, we must find the root of the curse within these memories." Maya stepped forward, wiping the sweat from her brow. "So you're saying the orb contains the answer? But it's more than just a power source. It's a trap." Varna nodded. "Yes. The orb is both a weapon and a prison. It holds the power to save us, but it also holds the darkness that destroyed us. To end the curse, we must confront the origin of the weapon, deep within the orb." Vance clenched his fists. "But how? We saw the destruction, the pain. How do we break this cycle?" Varna's voice was soft, almost sad. "The answer lies in a place buried deep in the memories of the Xellans. The weapon was created during the war, but it was not just a weapon. It was born from the betrayal of our allies, the very people we trusted. And it was unleashed not by force, but by a decision, a choice made by our leaders at the time." A heavy silence fell over the group. The weight of her words hung in the air like a cloud of dread. Betrayal. A choice. The curse had not come from an external enemy. It had been the result of a decision made by those who were meant to protect the Xellans. "What was that decision?" Vance asked, his voice a low whisper. Varna's eyes darkened, and for a moment, the room seemed to grow colder. "Our people were faced with an impossible choice: survive or protect the galaxy. Our leaders chose to protect the galaxy, to give up everything to stop a greater evil. But in doing so, they turned the power of the weapon against us. The curse was born from that choice, and it has never stopped spreading since." The crew absorbed this revelation in stunned silence. The Xellans had not been destroyed by an enemy's hand. They had been destroyed by their own leaders, who had made a desperate choice for the greater good. A choice that had turned on them, unleashing a curse that could not be undone. "We need to find a way to reverse the decision," Vance said firmly. "But how do we undo something like that? How do we change the past?" Varna shook her head. "We cannot change the past. But we can confront the choices that led to this moment. The key to ending the curse lies in finding the last remaining artifact, the one piece of the weapon that can be destroyed. It was hidden away, far from the city, in a place known only to our leaders. That is where the cure lies." Vance looked at Maya, who was already pulling up her data on the artifact. "Do you have any idea where this artifact could be?" Maya's eyes lit up as she scrolled through the data. "I've got a lead. There's a location marked on the map. A temple deep in the jungle. It wasn't part of the old city, but it's definitely linked to the weapon. If we go there, we might find the artifact and the answers we need." Varna nodded slowly. "It will not be easy. The temple is protected by ancient traps and by the lingering effects of the curse. Many have tried to find it before. None have returned." Vance's jaw set with determination. "We'll return. We're not turning back now." The crew gathered their gear and prepared to leave the vault, the weight of their mission heavier than ever. They knew the road ahead would be filled with danger, but there was no other choice. The Xellans' future, and possibly the future of the galaxy, depended on them. As they made their way out of the palace ruins, the world outside seemed to pulse with the same dark energy they had felt in the vault. The curse was everywhere, but they were no longer afraid. They had seen the truth, and they had found their resolve. Humanity had never backed down from a fight, and they weren't about to start now. Varna stood at the entrance of the vault, watching them as they prepared to leave. "You do not know what awaits you," she said quietly, "but I believe you are the ones who can end this." Vance turned to her, his eyes filled with resolve. "We'll do whatever it takes." The dense jungle stretched out before them, its thick canopy blocking out much of the sunlight. Every step felt heavy, as though the weight of the forest itself was pushing against them. The air was thick with moisture, and the sounds of unseen creatures echoed through the trees. Yet, despite the oppressive atmosphere, Commander Elias Vance and his team pressed forward. They were on a mission that could change the fate of the galaxy, and nothing, not even the jungle, would stop them. "Keep your eyes peeled," Vance instructed, his voice low but firm. "We don't know what kind of dangers we'll find here." Maya Hart, the ship's tech officer, checked her equipment. "According to the maps, the temple should be up ahead, but the readings are erratic. I can't get a clear signal. Something's blocking the scans." "Great," muttered Jonah Richards, the team's security officer. "Just what we need. A mysterious jungle full of hidden dangers and broken tech." Vance shot him a quick look. "Stay sharp, Richards. This is no time for jokes." The group moved cautiously through the jungle, each step taking them deeper into the heart of the unknown. The trees were tall and twisted, their roots snaking out from the ground like giant serpents. Strange, bioluminescent flowers bloomed at the base of some trees, casting an eerie glow in the otherwise dim environment. It was both beautiful and unsettling, as though the jungle itself was alive. "How much farther?" asked Maya, her voice tense. "Not far," Varna answered, her voice steady. She had insisted on accompanying them despite her fragile state. "The temple is hidden, but it is close. We must be careful. The curse that taints this world is stronger here. It feeds off the fear, the darkness of the jungle." Vance glanced at her, sensing the weight of her words. The jungle didn't just hide the temple, it seemed to guard it, as if the land itself had become a part of the curse. The deeper they went, the more the air seemed to thicken, pressing in on them from all sides. Suddenly, Maya stopped in her tracks, her eyes widening. "Wait, I think I found something." The rest of the team gathered around as she pointed to the ground. There, half hidden beneath the vines and dirt, was an ancient stone slab. It was covered in moss, but the symbols carved into its surface were unmistakable. "This is it," Varna said softly, her eyes gleaming with recognition. "The entrance." Maya crouched down to examine the symbols more closely. These markings, they're not just decorative. They're part of a mechanism. "This is a hidden door." Vance knelt beside her. "Can you open it?" Maya nodded, pulling out a small device from her pack. She connected it to the stone, and after a few moments of scanning, the device hummed to life. Slowly, the stone began to shift, and with a loud creak, the door slid open. Beyond the door was a narrow, dark passage, the air thick with dust and the scent of ancient decay. It felt as though the passage had been sealed for centuries, untouched by time. Vance motioned for the team to move forward. "Stay alert," he said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "We don't know what's waiting for us inside." The passage was long and winding, its walls covered in ancient inscriptions. Some of the writing was familiar to Varna, but much of it was lost to time. As they moved deeper, the walls seemed to close in on them, and the temperature dropped. The only sounds were their footsteps and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures scurrying in the shadows. At last, they reached the end of the passage, where a large stone door stood before them. This one was far more elaborate than the last, its surface covered in intricate carvings that seemed to move and shift as though alive. "That's the temple's inner sanctum," Varna said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Beyond this door is where the artifact is hidden." Vance stepped forward, his hand on the door's cool surface. He could feel a strange energy pulsing from within, a mix of fear and power that made his skin tingle. The curse was strong here, stronger than it had been anywhere else. This was the heart of the darkness, and they had to face it head-on. With a deep breath, Vance pushed the door open. It groaned as it moved, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The room was bathed in an eerie greenish glow, and in the center stood a pedestal, its surface glowing with the same light. On top of the pedestal rested an ancient-looking device, small, circular, and covered in strange symbols. The artifact. Varna breathed, her voice filled with awe. But as Vance stepped closer, a strange noise echoed through the chamber. A low, guttural growl reverberated off the walls, and the temperature seemed to drop even further. Suddenly, shadows shifted in the corners of the room, and from the darkness, creatures began to emerge, twisted, unnatural forms, their eyes glowing with an unsettling light. "Stay back," Vance shouted, drawing his weapon. The creatures moved quickly, their bodies shuddering as though they were made of shadows themselves. They attacked without hesitation, their claws slashing through the air. The team fought back with everything they had, but it was clear these were no ordinary foes. The curse had twisted them into something far more dangerous. "These creatures, they're the guardians of the temple," Varna said, her voice filled with both fear and determination. "We must defeat them if we are to take the artifact." Vance's grip tightened on his weapon as he prepared for the fight of his life. The creatures charged again, their glowing eyes locked on him and his team. The battle was about to begin, and there was no turning back. The battle was fierce. The creatures, born from the curse itself, lunged at Commander Elias Vance and his team with a savage fury. Their glowing eyes flickered with an eerie light, and their sharp claws slashed through the air. Each strike felt as if it carried the weight of the curse with it. Vance fired his weapon, his shots finding their marks, but the creatures seemed to dissolve into shadows before his eyes, only to reappear seconds later, more relentless than before. "We can't keep this up forever," he shouted to his team. Maya Hart, crouched behind a pillar for cover, was working quickly, scanning the room with her tech equipment. "There's something about these creatures," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "They're not just physical. They're tied to the curse itself. They're like shadows of the past, echoes of the destruction that happened here." Varna, standing beside Vance, clutched her chest, her face drawn with strain. "The curse has taken many forms," she said. "These creatures are part of it. The memories of our people, twisted by the darkness. We need to get to the artifact." Vance shouted, "That's the key to ending this. Focus on getting us to it." Jonah Richards, the security officer, fired his gun, taking down one of the creatures as it lunged at him. "I'm trying, but these things keep coming back. How do we stop them?" "The artifact," Maya said suddenly, her eyes lighting up with realization. "It's not just a weapon. It's the source of the curse. If we can destroy it, we can destroy the curse. It's the heart of everything." Vance turned to Varna. "How do we destroy it? You said it's the only way to stop this." Varna nodded, a haunted look in her eyes. "To destroy the artifact, you must break the connection it has to the curse. It's tied to the memories, the suffering of our people. Only by confronting those memories can we sever the link." Vance understood. The battle wasn't just physical. They had to face the emotional weight of the curse, the pain of the past. "We need to focus. We need to connect with the artifact, break the link." As if responding to his words, the creatures paused. The air in the chamber grew still. The shadows seemed to draw closer, as though waiting for something. Vance turned to his team. "This is it," he said. "We can't run from the curse. We have to face it, head on." With a determined stride, Vance moved toward the pedestal. The artifact sat there, glowing faintly, its surface shimmering with a strange otherworldly light. He could feel its power, its dark energy calling to him, trying to pull him in. He knew this was the moment that would decide the fate of not just the Helens, but the galaxy itself. Varna, standing just behind him, whispered, "Be careful, Commander. The artifact is alive with the memories of our people. You may see things you're not ready to face." Vance didn't hesitate. He reached out and touched the artifact. The moment his fingers made contact, everything around him shifted. The room disappeared, replaced by visions of the past. He saw the Xelens in their prime, their cities flourishing, their people filled with hope. He saw the moment the curse began, a decision made by the leaders, a choice that would haunt them for eternity. And he saw the destruction, the lives lost, the devastation that followed. But then, in the midst of the chaos, he saw something else, something that gave him hope. He saw the Xelans fighting back, their people rising up, refusing to be defined by their past. He saw the strength of the Xelans in their darkest hour. They had not given up. They had fought to survive. The energy from the artifact surged through him, filling him with the strength of those memories. He felt their pain, their loss, but he also felt their determination, their will to survive. With that strength, he pushed back against the dark energy, focusing on the hope that had emerged from the destruction. As he did, the creatures that had been attacking them began to fade. The shadows shrank back, retreating into the corners of the chamber, until they disappeared entirely. The curse, for the moment, was broken. The pedestal beneath Vance trembled, and the artifact's glow began to fade. Slowly, the chamber returned to normal. The weight of the curse had been lifted, but the memories of the Xelans, their suffering, their strength, remained. Vance turned to his team, his breath heavy but steady. It's over. The curse is gone. Varna, who had watched in silence, walked forward. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow. You've done it. You've broken the curse. Maya stepped up beside Vance, her face bright with a relieved smile. I think we finally found the end of the nightmare. Jonah clapped Vance on the back. You did it, Commander. We all did. The team stood together, the weight of their journey lifting from their shoulders. The Xelans had been saved, and the curse that had haunted their people for so long had been undone. But the battle had not been easy, and the scars of the past would remain. Still, there was hope for the future. Varna turned to them one last time, her voice filled with gratitude. The Xelans will rebuild. Thanks to you, our people have a chance to begin again. Vance nodded. This is just the beginning. Together, we can rebuild not just the Xelans, but all of us. We've learned that even in the darkest times, there's always a way forward. As they left the temple, the jungle no longer seemed so oppressive. The weight of the curse had been lifted, and the future seemed brighter. Humanity had given the Xelans the chance to rise again, and with that, they had made the galaxy a little bit brighter.